Hi students, today we'll talk about Dentin. Outline of our lecture will include components of dentin, tubules and odontoblasts, mantle dentin, interglobular dentin, tome layer, hyaline layer, circumpalpal dentin, predentin, curvatures, Schreger and OL lines, von Eppner lines, Andersen lines, Neonatal line, secondary, tertiary, and sclerotic dentin, dead tracts of fish. Look at this picture. At the surface we see the enamel. Below it we have the dentino-enamel junction. Then we have the dentin. The dentin is produced by odontoblasts. The odontoblast lies on the periphery of the pulp chamber. These cells which produces the dentin have processes. We call them odontoblastic processes. And these processes pass through tubules inside the dentin. We call them dentinal tubules. And these processes runs for a short distance inside the dentinal tubules. To make it easy for studying the dentin can be classified in different ways. One way is according to the date of formation, primary and secondary dentin and tertiary dentin can be classified according to the position around the pulp into mantle dentin and circumpalpal dentin, and can be classified according to the structure of the dentin or the form of the dentin into peritubular and intertubular dentin. We will discuss the dentin in these several ways. As we said earlier, this is the cell odontoblast. It has a process, we call it odontoblastic process, runs inside the dentinal tubules for short distance around the pulp. Then the remaining of the tubule is filled with dentinal fluid. At first we will study the mechanism of formation of the dentin. This picture is a decalcified section for the dentin, and this is a diagram for the dentin. As we said, the odontoblasts are the cells for producing the dentin. Having processes, runs inside tubules for short distance inside the dentin. The first formed dentin, we call it the predentin. The first dentin which is produced by the odontoblast is called predentin before the mineralization. Mineralization process starts as globules. These are the globules, or we call them calcospheres. And these globules or calcospheres will start to increase in size, become mineralized, deposition of calcium hydroxyapatite crystals. In the process we call it calcospheritis. Then these globules or calcospheres will unite together to give us the homogeneous dentin. So I have the layers is the odontoblast. Then the first laid down dentin, we call it predentin. Then we have this area where mineralization starts, we call it intermediate dentin. And this front is called the mineralization front, where will we find the calcospheres or the globules that starts to increase in size to give us the mature dentin or fully mineralized dentin. So I have odontoblasts, I have predentin, I have the mineralization or calcification front, the intermediate dentin, and then have the fully mature dentin. This is another view where we can see the odontoblasts, we can see the predentin, and here is the area of the mineralization front, the intermediate dentin, and here I have the mature dentin. You can notice here these calcospheres or globules which will increase in size to give us the homogeneous dentin. This is another view. D is dentin, C is the mineralization front, A odontoblast, and below here I have the pulp. You can see the processes in the predentin and runs all over the thickness of the dentin. These are the odontoplastic processes inside the dentinal tubules that runs for short distance inside the dentin. Here we can see the globules. These are the globules, the calcospheres. As you can notice here, they are increasing in size, become mineralized, then will give us this homogeneous dentin, and the dentinal tubules will pass through these globules. The dentinal tubules runs through these globules. This is a scanning electron microscope. These are the calcospheres or the dentinal globules. In this image we will talk about the types of dentin according to the composition, the intertubular and the intratubular dentin. Another name for the intratubular dentin is the peritubular dentin. This is a partial decalcified section. Here is a demineralized section. You can see here B. B refers for the dentin between the dentinal tubules, which we call it the intertubular dentin. A refers for the dentinal tubules. The dentinal tubules in cross section are circular in shape. C here refers for this light area. This light area is the intratubular dentin or peritubular dentin, and the dark spots here, these dark spots are the area of the lumen of the dentinal tubule, which contains either a dentinal fluid or dentinal process. This is another view. Here we can see the bulk is the intertubular dentin. The whitish area here is the peritubular dentin, and the dark spot inside is the lumen of the dentinal tubule. This is a transmission electron microscope for the intertubular dentin and the dentinal tubule. This is the dentinal tubule. Here the darkest area is the intratubular or peritubular dentin. Here is the lumen. You can notice the difference between the intertubular dentin and the intratubular dentin. The intertubular dentin is rough in appearance with collagen fibers and calcium hydroxyapatite crystals. The intratubular dentin lacks collagen. That's why it is about 15% more mineralized, and it lacks collagen, and it is more electron dense than the intertubular dentin area. This view we can see here, C refers for the lumen of the dentinal tubule, B for the intertubular dentin, A the whitish area around the lumen is the peritubular or the intratubular dentin. In this section we can see the amount of dentinal tubules according to the area, whether it is close to the pulp or far away from the pulp. You can notice in this view here, as we are more close to the pulp surface, if we take the section in this area, we can see in 1 millimeter higher numbers of dentinal tubules. In the middle area you can see it is less in number. As you go far away near the surface of the dentin-enamel junction, number of dentinal tubules becomes less. Another thing that you can see here, the lumen of the dentinal tubule, it is wide, broad. Inside near the area of the pulp, in the middle the lumen becomes less in diameter. As you go far away, the lumen will become much more less. In other words, In 1 millimeter near the pulp, you can count, for example, 20 dentinal tubules. In the middle area, you will count in 1 millimeter about 15 millimeter. In the area near the dentin enamel junction, you can count, for example, 8 millimeter. And also the diameter of the dentinal tubule, as you go far away from the pulp, it becomes much more smaller. This is a decalcified section where we can see the dentinal collagens of the dentin. These are the dentinal collagens which are randomly distributed inside the dentin. In the area near the dentino-enamel junction, the collagen fibers are perpendicular to the dentino-enamel junction. Near the dentino-enamel junction, the collagen fibers are perpendicular to the dentino-enamel junction, while in the remaining areas of the dentin, the collagen fibers are randomly distributed. Here we can see the dentinal tubules and the collagen fibers around them. Branching and curving. Dentinal tubules runs from the odontoplastic process toward the dentino-enamel junction, and these tubules at the end near the dentino-enamel junction are branched. You can see here the branching only in the area near the dentino-enamel junction, in the crown region and also in the root region. But the difference that in the root region there is a branching of the dentinal tubules, and at the same time there will be looping back of the branching of the dentinal tubules. The area here where the dentinal tubules are branched is in the area of the first laid down dentin, which we call it the mantle dentin, in the crown region near the enamel. While in the roots, the branching in the area, we call it tome's granular layer. Next to it, we will have the hyaline layer and the cementum. The difference in between the two, in the crown region, there is a branching of the dentinal tubules, and the collagen fibers are called perpendicular to this dentino-enamel junction. In the root area, there will be branching and looping back of the dentinal tubules. Here you can see the dentinal tubule and its branching near the dentino-enamel junction. C here enamel, B dentino-enamel junction, D enamel spindle. Interglobular dentin. Interglobular dentin, as we said earlier, the process of mineralization for the dentin, we call it calcospherosis, where we have globules or calcospheres that will increase in size to give us the homogeneous dentin. If there is a failure between these globules to unite together, they will leave dark areas. We call them interglobular dentin. We can see them below the mantle dentin. This area is the area of the first formed dentin near the dentino-enamel junction. This is the area of the mantle dentin. Below it, this area where we see these dark areas is the interglobular dentin. If we make a higher magnification, here I can see the enamel, the dentino-enamel junction. The first formed dentin is the mantle dentin. These areas, we call them the interglobular dentin. As you can see here, there was a globule here, a globule here, a globule here, another one. These globules failed to unite together to give us the homogeneous dentin, and these areas, we call them the interglobular dentin. We see them in the crown region below the area of the mantle dentin. This is interglobular dentin. This is interglobular dentin. Here is the interglobular dentin. There was a globule here, another one here, another one here, and another one here. These globules fail to unite together to give us the homogeneous dentin, resulting in this dark area which is hypomineralized, which will be hypomineralized, and that's why it looks black in color. It is hypomineralized. These areas, we call them the interglobular dentine. In the root region, these are the dentinal tubules. At the end, there will be branching and looping back of the dentinal tubules. This looping back and branching, when we make sections, they will entrap air inside them. That's why they look like small globules. This, which we call it the tome's granular layer. This is tome's granular layer. Above it directly, there is a yellowish area or a yellowish band. This yellowish band is the hyaline layer, which helps binding the overlying layer, which is cemented, to the underlying layer, which is the dentin. This is higher magnification. These are the tubules. This area is the tome's granular layer, where we have branching and looping back of the dentinal tubules. This band, yellowish in color, is the hyaline layer, and here I have the cementum. This layer, hyaline, binds the cementum to the underlying dentin. This is a decalcified section for the tome's granular layer. Here I have the dentinal tubules. I will have branching and looping back of the dentinal tubules. There will be branching and looping back of the dentinal tubules. This looping back will cause entrapment of air that will lead to dark granules in ground section. This is how it looks like in decalcified section. This is the end of the dentin. Then I have this band. This band is what we call it the hyaline layer. Above the hyaline layer here I have the cementum. Hyaline layer helps binding the cementum to the underlying dentin. This is another section. You can see here the enamel above. I have the dentin. Cementum is overlapping the enamel. Here I have the tome's granular layer. C is the mantle dentin. F enamel. E dentin enamel junction. D tome's granular layer. G cementum. C mantle dentin. B interglobular dentin, and A is the circumpalpal dentin or dentin. This is the interglobular dentin. As we said, that the dentin separating the mantle dentin and the circumpalpal dentin is hypomineralized and is called the interglobular dentin. This is a comparison between the interglobular dentin and the tome's granular layer. Structural lines in dentin. In section of dentin viewed by different techniques, a variety of lines approximately perpendicular to the dentinal tubules can be seen. The description and explanation of these lines vary considerably. Some have had the name of the individual who first described them attached to them, causing confusion when later investigators use those names to include somewhat different structures. So there are two related groups of lines, those originating from curvatures of the dentinal tubules and those arising from the incremental deposition of the dentinal and its subsequent mineralization. So the incremental lines either related to the curvature of the dentinal tubules or to the incremental growth of the dentin. The curvature of the dentinal tubules or the course of the dentinal tubules is sigmoid, S-shape. It is sigmoid, as you can see here. From the dentin enamel junction to the pulp, it has an S-shape. And it is least pronounced in the incisal edge areas and the root or mainly the cervical plate is more horizontal. At first, we will see the primary curvature. What is the meaning of the primary curvature? The primary curvature is the dentinal tubule along its course from the pulp to the dentin enamel junction. This is the S-shape or sigmoid course of the dentinal tubule. It is not straight. It is sigmoid in course. This we call it the primary curvature. Secondary curvatures along the course of the dentinal tubule or its shape, there will be small bends or small curves along the course of the tubule itself. This we call it the secondary curvature. This is the secondary curvature. In this view, you can identify the enamel. This is the mantle dentin. This is the circumpalpal dentin. And here, if we make a line like this is the dentinal tubule, the primary curvature. In this image, we can see two types of dentin, the primary dentin and the secondary dentin. The primary dentin, this is a line of demarcation between two areas. This area is homogeneous, more broad than this area. This line demarcates the time where the root have been completed. So all the dentin which is produced before root completion, we call it primary dentin, including the mantle and the circumpalpal. And all the dentin which is produced after root completion, we call it secondary dentin. So this area is the primary, and this area is the secondary dentin. This is a line of demarcation between the two, where we have a bend in the course of the sigmoid course of the dentinal tubule. This is the dentinal tubule. Then it becomes more straight. It becomes more straight or less curved in compared to the primary dentin. So I have the primary dentin before root completion, secondary dentin after root completion. Schreger lines. As we said earlier, we have primary curvatures and secondary curvatures. The primary curvatures of the dentinal tubules along from pulp to the external surface. This is another curve. Coincidence of the peak of the primary curvatures will give us a line, we call it Schreger line. So Schreger line is resulting from the coincidence of the peaks of the primary curvatures. Coincidence of the peak of the secondary curvatures, coincidence of the peak of the secondary curvatures will give us another line, we call it, or other lines, we call them Owen lines. We call them Owen lines. These are Owen lines resulting from the coincidence of the peak of the secondary curvature. So the Schreger line can be seen in longitudinal sections only, difficult to see in cross section, and resulting from the coincidence of the peak of the primary curvature. This is the primary curvature. Coincidence of the peak will give us the Schreger line. The bend between the primary and secondary curvature will give us Owen line, or two line of Owen, and coincidence of the secondary curvatures will give us Owen lines. Owen lines. As for enamel, enamel has a neonatal line if it corresponds to the date of birth. At the same time, there is a neonatal line in dentin if it corresponds to the date of birth, like the neonatal enamel. There was a disturbance in the rate of metabolism or metabolism process affecting both the enamel and dentin, resulting in neonatal line in both enamel and dentin. If the line doesn't correspond to the date of birth, we call it Wilson band in enamel, and we call it Owen line in dentin. Also, there are incremental lines related to the incremental growth of dentin. In enamel, there was a short period and long period activity for production of enamel. The short period activity, we call it cross striation, and long period activity, we call it stria of radius. The same thing is in the dentin. There is a short period activity for dentin production, resulting in lines, we call them incremental lines of von Ebner. We call them the incremental lines. These are the incremental lines of von Ebner, representing the short period activity of odontoclast. As we can see in this image, these are the dentinal tubules. Along the course, there is a short period activity. This is the incremental lines of von Ebner. This is the same thing. These are the incremental lines of von Ebner. Long period activity will result in incremental lines. We call them incremental lines of Andersen. These are the incremental lines of Andersen. Exaggerated line is a neonatal line. These are the incremental lines of Andersen, representing the long period activity of odontoclasts. Here I have the stria of Retzius. You can see the stria of Retzius. Mantle dentin, as we said earlier, the first dentin which is produced near the enamel, we call it mantle dentin, where we have branching of the ends of the dentinal tubule, and the mantle dentin is less mineralized than the remaining dentin. Primary dentin and secondary dentin. The dentin before root completion is the primary. After root completion is the secondary dentin. There is a bend between the primary and secondary dentin, and the course of the tubule becomes less sigmoid, it becomes more straight. Sclerotic dentin. What's the sclerotic dentin? Sclerotic dentin is resulting from or resulting as a response to stimuli. So I have primary dentin, secondary dentin are normal physiological deposition for the dentin. One before root completion and the second after root completion, which continues with you, the secondary dentin, all over your life. The sclerotic dentin is resulting from stimulus on the tooth. Stimulus in this picture is a low-grade acid. Here is the area of a pit on the crown. This area where we have food deposition resulting in acid production. This acid production is the stimulus. This stimulus will lead to obliteration of the dentinal tubules of this area. This whitish area is the area of the sclerotic dentin. This is the normal dentin. Here is the sclerotic area where we have the dentinal tubules have been obliterated by new dentin. This we call it the sclerotic dentin. It is a pathological. It is pathological because produced in response to stimulus. Tertiary dentin also is not physiological. Tertiary dentin is produced in response to stimulus. In this image, the stimulus was drilling. This is a drilling for preparation of a cavity in this tooth to remove the pit or the caries. Heat will be generated during the drilling. This heat will affect the odontoblast near the pulp. If the original odontoblast, some of them will be die and some will remain. The remained odontoblast will produce new dentin. This dentin has to be produced very fast in order to protect the pulp. This newly formed dentin, we call it reactionary dentin. Reactionary dentin, where we have the original odontoblast, produces this newly formed dentin. This newly formed dentin may be tubular, atubular, regular, irregular. It may be osteodentin, where we have the osteoblast entrapped inside the dentin. If this stimulus leads to death of the original odontoblast, some cells inside the pulp, we call them stem cells or undifferentiated mesenchymal cells, will differentiate into odontoblast-like cells, move to this area, and starts to produce dentin. This is a reactionary dentin. This is a reactionary dentin or response dentin in response to a stimulus that leads to either death of the original odontoblast or some of the cells will die and the remaining will produce new dentin, reactionary or reparative dentin or response dentin. formation. This dentine has been formed very fast in response to stimulus from the external environment. Here I have the odontoblast, either the original odontoblast or odontoblast-like cells. Odontoblast-like cells. This is the newly formed dentine. As we said earlier, it could be tubular, peritubular, it could be regular or regular. If some odontoblast cells are found inside this dentine, we call it osteodentine like bone. This is another view where we have the odontoblast should be here, but because of the stimulus, these cells either died or replaced by newly formed cells, and this is a newly formed dentine, which is the tertiary dentine. Some call this dentine as irregular secondary dentine, or it could be called irregular secondary dentine. The line between the secondary dentine and the tertiary dentine we call the calciochromatic line. Tertiary dentine or irregular secondary dentine or reparative dentine or response dentine. Here I have, this is the dentine to use, the normal dentine. Here the white area is the sclerotic dentine. This is the sclerotic dentine. In this image, here I have the enamel, here is the dentine, here is the pulp. You can see here the caries, which leads to acid formation. This acid will dissolve the peritubular dentine or the intratubular dentine in these areas. The lumen will become larger, it will entrap fluids and air, that's why it will look dark in color. This area is called dead tracts of fish. This area we call it dead tract of fish because of the stimulus or the pathogen, which is the acid of the caries, resulting in dissolving the peritubular dentine and increasing the lumen. That's why it will entrap air and fluids. It will look dark in color in this section. This we call it the dead tract of flesh. These areas where we have sclerotic dentine are called the blind tracts. Blind tracts because the dentinal tubules are obliterated by dentine to prevent the stimulus from reaching the pulp. But as the stimulus continues influencing these areas, the dentine inside it will also be dissolved till the acid reaches the pulp, leading to pulpitis and inflammation of the pulp. In this case, you need to go to a dentition for root canal treatment. In this area, you can see the dead tract of fish A, and B is the blind tract. This is the blind tract. Here is the enamel, dentine, and here I have the pulp. Translucent dentine or transparent dentine. The translucent dentine, transparent dentine, we will see the dentinal tubules obliterated by dentine is a normal physiological process. The sclerotic dentine, we have obliteration of the dentinal tubules, but it is in response to stimulus like caries, trauma, high temperature to the tooth, or drilling. But the translucent dentine is a normal physiological process. By aging, there will be obliteration of the dentinal tubule. This is a longitudinal section. You can see here, this area, we can see behind. Look at these spots. This is transparent area. Why? Because all the dentinal tubules in these areas have been obliterated by the dentine. This area we cannot see the spots behind. Why? Because the dentinal tubules are open, so they will entrap air and fluid, so we cannot see behind them. This is the translucent, a normal physiological process. If we have a cross section in this area, This how it will look like. This how it will look like. This is what we call the butterfly appearance. This is the butterfly appearance in cross section. Why? Because of the divergence or convergence of the dentinal tubules from this point to the external surface. This is used in forensic dentistry. This is used in